Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 23 of Wake Up with Giants Radio. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. And we're saying hello to all of our social media friends now, and we will be all over social media right now. This is our normal time slot, Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. And today is our first official day with the Cat Country Radio family. I'm so excited to be here. Before I introduce our topic and our special guest co-host, we're going to go right into our centering, and then we'll come back right with you. So we're going to sit up nice and straight and tall. Take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and out. In and out. In and out. I show up today with purpose, in calm, and with intention of reaching one person today, changing that one person with my vulnerability, with my knowledge, with my experience. I show up to learn from our incredible co-hosts today and learn from all of you, our guests that come on and join us and support us every single Sunday in the comments. I look forward to learning from all of you today. Nick?
I am showing up vulnerably today. Since this is a topic that speaks to me, I hope that my vulnerability around it will help somebody that's listening today on our journey to reach 100 million lives. Today, I care about the one. Specifically, I am so focused on this show that that I am able to make an impact in that form. So that's my intention today.
Thank you. Maureen?
Today I show up with humility and love, knowing that the journey is one chapter at a time. And if my scars will help somebody heal, then I am here to serve.
Thank you. Alyssa?
I show up today with peace, love, and understanding in my heart. Like Nick, I probably will be a little bit vulnerable with this topic as well. But I show up for that one person and for any person just to let them know that maybe I'm a little bit further down the track and that you can heal your heart. Yes.
Thank you. All right, my friends. We have Nicole here in the comments. She says she loves Maureen's hair. She's saying hello to all of us. So I'm going to introduce our topic today, my friends. This is episode 23, and today we're talking about how to love and accept yourself after divorce. We have an incredible guest co-host, one of our favorites. I tell everybody I want her to adopt me, Maureen Pisani. And we also have in the studio here with us today league members Nick, the Gentle Giant, and Alyssa, the Adventure Queen. I am Lady Luck, and we're excited to have you here with us today. So today we're talking about recovering from divorce, and Maureen says that getting divorced is one of the biggest traumas that we go through. I agree with her. She says horrible things are said and done to us during this time, and the process tends to bring out the worst of personalities. So the question is, how are you supposed to free yourself from that? How are you supposed to release all of that negativity and learn to love and accept yourself? And I'm going to go right straight to Maureen with all of her wisdom to get us started. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here again. And yes, this is a vulnerable topic. And yes, I appreciate all of you being ready because we've been through it, right? The statistics on divorce are staggering. And it is something that we don't get out unscathed. We all emerge from a divorce with scars. And it takes a little bit of a different perspective to come into a space where we can close a chapter and reopen a new one. The truth of the matter is this: none of us get married with a plan to divorce. We all stand on that altar or that space, vowing to love that other person for the rest of our lives. And then something happens. And the irony here is it doesn't matter what it is. Something happens to break that connection. And the biggest thing I would like you to do is to realize that this is uncharted territory. We had happily ever after, all the fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after. And then we hit reality, right? And we land with a hard thud. So we come to a point where we're in uncharted territory, we're in foreign land, and we are behaving in ways we don't even recognize. So we need to look into how we can look at what is, the reality of it. It's done. What we hoped for, the best outcome, we ended up living the worst outcome. But now we have, and now what? And at some point, there's a part of us, even if it's a tiny 1% part of us, that is hoping that the healing process happens so we can actually relaunch and experience true love. But we don't know. Can we trust? Can I trust others? And can I trust me? So there's a lot of things going on. And I won't put people on the spot. So if I have to point fingers, I'll put them this way. This way.
I'll take a pointing. You can do that right here. Yeah.
Okay. But it's something where we are all thinking it. And
Yeah.
some of us seem to heal faster. And some of us seem to have deeper wounds. But the reality is we're all scarred. So if we look back to explain something, sometimes I switch context. So if we look back to when you were a kid, you wore a size 3 shoe. And then something happened and your foot didn't fit in the shoe anymore. So you bought a size 4. But when that happened, you were devastated. The world didn't stop spinning. You accepted it as growth. This divorce thing could actually be growth. Because we adapt and we adjust who we are personality-wise. We go from information to wisdom because we apply the information. So some of us apply calculus and we have wisdom there. But sometimes life teaches us information. So we can have this event over here and just go, okay, this happened, so now what? Or we can take that information and apply the learning and transforming into wisdom. Because then once we have wisdom, then we can actually evolve. Now, I like the word evolve over growth, because if you look at the word evolve, the first 4 letters are love backwards. So growth with love. So we all, if we can choose to evolve. But now, there's also a situation that as the situation is happening to us, we get divorced. Whoever started the proceedings at this point is irrelevant. The breakup happened, the rosy-colored glasses are shattered, and we're seeing the ugly. The funny part is this: what the cutest little quirks, the idiosyncrasies that we fell in love with, are exactly the same points we can't stand that person for now. So something shifted, right? And now we come to the point where, and now what, includes us. Because who am I? With everything that just happened to me, I'm not the same person. I know that for a fact. I'm not the same person that I was when I got married, because life happened. So for me to say, it's okay, no big deal, I'll start dating next month, that might be unrealistic because I need to get to know who I am. There's a movie with Julia Roberts, Runaway Bride. And Richard Gere asks all the ex-fiancés, how did she like her eggs for breakfast? And they all said, just like me, I had them over easy or scrambled or an omelet, right? And the key here was this: she had never decided what she wanted because of her taste. So I always advocate to give yourself some time between the closing of a chapter and before reopening, because you've transformed. And it could be simply, what kind of music do you like? What kind of movies do you want to watch? What kind of downtime is really good for you within the version of today? Because I'm different. Now, the other thing that happens is we tend to be reeling, recoiling from what happened. When we're breaking up, now remember, let's rewind the story. In the beginning of the relationship, there was this amazing person that we were incredibly curious about. So we learned, right? We knew all of their likes and dislikes, their happy, their sad, their weakness, their insecurities. So we know this person, but they know us too. And then when the breakup happens, what do A or B, doesn't matter who does it, but lashing out. So for you guys who don't know me, many years ago, I got injured. I ended up having 5 surgeries on each elbow. When I was divorced, this had to be about a month after I left. I was washing my hands in the kitchen, and my ex, who knew it was a done deal, looked at me and said, and I quote, "You've come a long way." And I paused. And he said, "From being a cripple and all." And I stopped, and I turned because he was looking behind me. And I said, "Did you just call me a cripple to my face?" And he said, "Well, weren't you?" He doubled down. So when I am there, now this is the key point here, okay? I had a choice, because everything we decide, everything that happens is through a decision. So think about it from his perspective. In our brain, we have a thought. The thought goes through our prefrontal cortices right here, which is, can I do it? Should I do it? Should I say it? So he thought it, he assessed it, he approved it, and he said it. I technically have the same ability, right? I could have, because I knew the guy, I could have went and machine gunned every insecurity I knew that he had. But the question is this: what would that have gotten me? Because ultimately, regardless of religious background, there's a tallying up on our soul. So whether you look at it as a life review or a judgment by God or simply karma, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pay for. So could I have machine gunned him and sliced him into itty bitty pieces? Sure, I would have loved it. But I really didn't want to pay the price for that later. So my answer, which I'm really happy about, was I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Thank you for making my decision the correct one." And I walked out. So now the funny part is this: what he thought was going to be the harshest comment to break me has now become an amazing tool to teach and to share. Because when you hear it about somebody else, you feel it. What? He said, what? And you have no idea how I still laugh about it. So use that and transform it.
I want to jump in here too, Maureen, because I don't want our listeners to miss a couple of incredible points that you've made. I love that you're saying I can and I choose to. I love that you're using those words, because we have the choice to learn from it and move on and grow from it, or overcome, right? We have the choice to do that or not to do that. And I love that you're pointing that out, because sometimes we just can sit back in this area of working through what happened and mourning the loss of the relationship and all of that, and not choosing to find the value in it and to find the moving forward in it, right? And to find the lesson in it. And so I love that we have the choice to do that or not. And I also love that you said right at the beginning, you said that sometimes we don't recognize ourselves. We start speaking things and we don't recognize ourselves anymore. And I resonate with that one hugely. I found myself in that spot at the beginning of my divorce, not recognizing myself and who I've become in the relationship, but not recognizing the words that were coming out of my mouth and thinking, I'm not this person. How am I saying these things, right? Why am I saying these things? And it's taken me a very long time to step back, even in an argument now, in any relationship now, present day, that's a relationship that I'm in, to step back and say, no, don't let those words pass through, because that's not me. That's my emotions. That's not me. Don't let the words pass through. Stay up here and let my partner rise up. Don't fall down to where my partner is.
It's funny that a lot of people, I won't say everybody, I won't clump them into that group there, but a lot of people say my ex was toxic, and rarely do you hear I was toxic. Right. But so according to that, every person that's out in the dating pool now is going to be toxic because their ex has said so. Right. But the reality is, like Philip Zimbardo in his work on evil, he talks about everybody has the ability to become pretty dark. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I've witnessed that in my own divorce. I did things I have never done in a relationship ever. And I look back and in a way I'm a little appalled, but I'm grateful that I'm awakened to that's a possibility for me. So I don't have to go back down that road again and repeat that. But
one of the things that we don't realize is, when we think of murders, and we are horrified and we are disgusted by that behavior. The truth of the matter is, if you are protecting the number one person you love or your children, each of us has the capability to kill. It's how much is the ante? What is at risk? Because we cannot say, I know I can't say I'll never kill, because if somebody threatens my family, there's no stopping me. We talk about mama bear behavior when the mom, picked up the Volkswagen and pulled the son out. Where did that strength come from? So we have the strength for good, we have the strength for negative. But the trick here is how we assess it. To know that you have the potential gives you power. And how you use it is important. And the other thing also is, keep in mind, because unfortunately, and I appreciate it's a two-party exchange here. And I never say man or woman, I say A or B, because it could be any kind of configuration. But we do need to recognize that there are some people who have almost like extra viciousness. So if they're narcissists, they will do harm and enjoy it. And that is one of the deepest wounds we can have, because they've played us, they showed us a facade, they made us fall in love with the facade, then the mask fell, then we were horrified, then we felt stupid because how could I possibly love this monster? And then they turn around and stab us in the back as many times as they want to because they enjoy it. So we need to come to a point where there's something called radical acceptance. Water is wet. We don't get upset about it. The sun is hot. We don't get upset about that, right? It's a fact. So sometimes we need to come to the point where we put this person, whoever it is, Hitler was a bad person. Nothing I can do about it. I'm not getting upset or happy or depressed. It's the fact. Hitler was bad. So if I'm looking at an ex and I'm recognizing these traits, and I can literally say, that person was a narcissist and he was evil or she was evil, walk away. I can't really get upset if a pig is dirty, because that's what pigs do. And I can't get upset if a fish is swimming in the ocean. So if I come to a point and I recognize that this is the personality trait that I was dealing with, that's it. Recognize it and walk away.
there's a thing I was taught by one of my therapists. He said, having traits of something doesn't merit a diagnosis. Yet many people in divorce go throw out diagnoses like they're therapists. So the idea that he or she is a narcissist, they may have traits. In fact, I would say that we all have traits for those things. And so they might come out when you get into a trauma scenario like that, which I would consider divorce a trauma. You're going to go into childlike behavioral responses that you're used to. And some of those are going to appear like narcissism. Some of them are going to appear like borderline or CPTSD or some of these other things. But it doesn't mean that person's a narcissist. It just means that their traits for that came out very strongly in that situation.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Oh, I agree. Yes, because when it comes to trauma, we are going to react to protect. And I'm going to protect me, and the other person is going to protect themselves. So if lashing out is how they can think, offense is the best defense. If lashing out is how they feel protected, then they're going to do it. But again, it's what am I in charge of? Me. What am I responsible for? My words and actions. So there are many times in my past where I did bite my tongue. I did intentionally do not respond, because the lashing out or the responding or the retaliation, that's on my soul. Now, I'm not a robot. I have emotions. I'm Mediterranean, so I have a pulse. So if I put the brakes on, and I know I can, in the moment, I'll put the brakes on, and there will not be a word passing my lips. I will walk away from that scenario, and then I will either go home or go into a bathroom or lock myself there and just let the litany of very colorful words come out in private.
Mhm.
So
And in Italian, right? Like,
every
Maltese.
in every
Yeah.
language. The beauty of being multilingual is I can swear in many languages.
Yeah, perfect.
It comes out. So, but I have done it because from one aspect, I need to release it because all that negative emotion will affect me physically and health-wise.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I honestly, to be transparent here, I don't want to give them the opportunity to feel the satisfaction that they ruffled my feathers.
There's something that I did when I was going through my divorce. It was hard. The emotions are hard. They're heavy. I made a commitment about putting a marble in the jar for my ex and my kids. And so I would every day do something that would be positive for my ex and my kids.
Good.
And it was really hard because part of me felt really angry and frustrated. I wanted to lash out, but I made a commitment. And the way I understand forgiveness, the best definition I've heard is to not cause additional harm. And so I made a commitment to not cause additional harm. I put the marble in the jar and do nice things. On the day of my divorce, I was pretty devastated. I went out to a field on the other side of Utah Lake here, and out in the middle of this field, get emotional here, was a marble out in the middle of nowhere on the day of my divorce, and it anchored in that I was doing the right thing. For me, that was my symbol that I took from it. But there's this commitment that can come, like you say, you could turn around and lash out and throw out a machine gun, a barrage of all these things that are negative about them and continue the fight and cause additional harm. Or like you said, you can make a commitment to pause and not cause additional harm. It doesn't mean you love what is. It just means you have a commitment not to take it further.
Yes.
And I love that you just said the word pause, because I in my relationship now, we have the word pause built into our relationship. And if we are having a disagreement and it's kind of moving, not in a place that's productive, either one of us will pause it, and the other one, and we will say, I love you, and we'll come to a place of love and pause the whole thing and come back to it after. But it's a reminder that we're in a place of love. I love you. I don't want to say something I regret. This is getting too far. We both need to cool off. We're going to pause this right now.
Yes. Yes. The one thing I do need to delineate, there are two ways of dealing with a divorce. If you have kids, you have to be aware that for your soul's sake, take the high road every time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're single and there are no kids, then, cut cords and move on, because that's something that you really have no repercussions on. But if there are children, in the long term, it might not be next year, but it might be in 10 years. Take the high road. The truth will bubble up to the surface. It always does. And I've seen too many situations where the exes are using the kids as pawns.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is they damage the kids. The emotional trauma to the children is irreparable. So if you can, call your friends, drive out and scream into a pillow. It doesn't matter. Do whatever you need to. But take the high road for the children's sake. And later chapters will solve themselves.
Can I just talk into that, Maureen?
Absolutely.
So my journey was very unusual. So I separated from my husband, and then we did 6 months counselling. And then we made a commitment to live and travel together in a caravan around Australia. So here I was trying to separate myself from this man, and then I was sitting like 2 foot away from him in a car.
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7. Yeah. So we did that for a year. We traveled together, but we made a commitment to do it for our children. And I didn't want him to miss out on those experiences. So regardless of how we were feeling about each other, And I've read a lot of books in those car trips, let me tell you, because he did a lot of the driving, and there wasn't a whole lot of talking, but we would come together as a family and eat together and things like that. And he didn't stay in the van or anything. But we made that commitment for our kids.
Good.
So yeah, I have 3 kids, so the kids always came first, and he was the same. He was able to do that too.
That's fantastic.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible, Alyssa.
It does take 2. You know, my ex and I, we didn't have attorneys. We negotiated the whole thing. We've kept to that commitment through the whole thing. We've been friendly. We're talking. The kids are vital for that. We both have a relationship with them. But it does take 2. If one party's not participating or doesn't want to, then it can feel really challenging in that case.
One of the questions I ask my clients to ask their ex when the negativity is intense and they're using the children as pawns, the truth of the matter is, and I apologize for the bluntness here, but the ex actually hates the other person. So the question I ask my client to ask their ex is this: can you please love our children more than you hate me? Because that's the only thing that is actually overriding their intention, their response, their motive for behavior is, how can I hurt my ex? Because they're blah, 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 fill in the blank. But they're not seeing the collateral damage that's happening to the children. So if we can get, like what Nick just said, love the children first. Make your decisions, your choices, your deeds, your actions because of loving your children first. And then the side effect, the overflow, the ripple effect on the ex, so be it. But if you keep the intention of loving your children first, usually the deeds and actions are not negative. So that's something that's very key. And in the moment, we're having custody battles and we're having character witnesses and slander, and it just is a disaster. So we have to come over it. We have to rise above it.
I think it goes back to the term of forgiveness, not causing additional harm. At some point, somebody has to stop and put down the sword. Somebody. And what happens is there's this battle back and forth. I had a conversation the other day with a neighbor of mine, an old neighbor of mine, and she's going through a divorce. And she's like, I just want to get this wrapped up. The husband's not into it. He just keeps battling. So she protects herself, and then she battles back. And so they get stuck in this cycle of just battling back and forth. And so somebody can relent, at some point. And it's one of those cases, I think, in divorce is one of those places where you do want to have some relent. But again, who does it and under what circumstances? I don't get to be the judge of that.
Because usually relent means lose, and we don't like to lose.
Yeah.
So exactly are you winning?
Nothing. You're winning nothing. I can't say that my divorce was, and I was going to use the word smooth, and I think that's the wrong word, but it wasn't as amicable as Nick and Alyssa's was. Mine was 5 years of nasty battle in court and $65,000 in legal fees just for me. And at 2:00 the morning of our court date, finally our court date 5 years later, 2 a.m. that morning, I put the sword down and I said, this isn't happening. Judge is not deciding. 2:00 that morning. And at 10:00 we went in front of the judge and we said, here's the agreement. And she accepted it.
That is hard.
Yes.
It was very hard. I'm like by myself. I'm like, because this is fresh. Mine just finally got settled in March. March, after 5 years. And I mean, the divorce was settled 2 years ago, but all of the rest of it finally just settled this March. And 2:00 in the morning, I put the sword down and said, I'm done. I'm not fighting this anymore. So it was
such a great decision.
I had a thought around that too. Our earlier show today talked about surrender, and surrender. The first part, "sir," is over, and render is to give over, right? So to have a surrender, our guest talked about the necessity of having a receiver. There's a giver and a receiver, and if there's no receiver, there can't be surrender. And so I think in a divorce, when you relent, like, in your case, Melissa, there's a giver and a receiver in that situation, and that's surrender, which in that case allows freedom to move forward. It ends all the fighting, and then we can start building back up from there. But until there's this surrender, this giving and receiving, then it's just like this battle, and it just gets worse and worse. I don't know, just a thought there. Any other thoughts come up from that?
Well, one of the things, I'm not into martial arts, but I know who Bruce Lee is. Have you ever seen a movie with Bruce Lee when there's this punk? He's taken like 2 classes of karate, right? And he's karate chopping the world, and he tries to entice Bruce Lee into a fight. And Bruce Lee walks up and goes, "You're not worth it," and walks away. Does it minimize Bruce Lee's capacity? Not in the slightest. But the ability for Bruce Lee to see, I am the master of my skill, and this punk is just trying to upset me, and I'm not going to give in to that. That detachment is where you win. Because most fights in divorce is money. So one of the jokes is, and I am not Bruce Lee.
I think he's challenging you to a fight. Is what it means. Yeah.
For all of our radio listeners, Ryan just said you are Bruce Lee, Maureen.
You guys are too cute. So one of my running jokes is that I might be connected to the mafia because I gave my ex an offer he couldn't refuse. Because I knew it was going to come down to money. And with law, California is 50-50. Money comes and goes. So I gave him more than 50%. You know why? Because I didn't want the hassle. And I put it on the line. I don't want a hassle, so here's my offer to you. But if you fight me, then I'll do 50-50. And he got kind of upset because he wanted to fight, but he was aware that the percentage I offered him was ridiculously generous because I know I make money and I'm always going to land on my feet. So when you know there are parts of you that don't change. So you can use those as the foundation. And then when push came to shove, he took the offer. But that meant I didn't have to go through months or years of fighting over what? Numbers? Money? I truly believe the Band-Aid technique, get it done and close the chapter.
This is beautiful because our topic is how to love and accept yourself after divorce. But in doing that, at loving and accepting yourself, part of this giving more than you really have to. I did that. When we first got divorced, I moved into my brother's basement, was living in a bedroom. I make pretty decent money. I was giving her most of my check. I'd take $500 to live on for food and gas, and I'd give her my entire check. It was way above and beyond what was necessary. And it opened the door. Here's what it did. It opened the door for us to have amicable conversations about creating something that could work for both of us. And now we have an agreement that is very fair, probably better than what the state would have done. We didn't have attorneys.
Good.
But sometimes, like you said, there's that over giving, right? That surrender, like it is what it is. It's not going backward, and any fighting's guaranteeing that's not going backward. So like over giving initially can create the foundation for you to really open a dialogue to make it amicable and workable.
And then you're free. Now, looking back, hindsight will give us a few things. Did we do it right? If we did, we have satisfaction, peace of mind. We have cleanliness in our soul. If we, and I've heard clients, I've been a therapist for 16 years. I've heard all kinds of stories. And when somebody goes, I quit my job so she wouldn't have alimony or child support. What kind of hindsight is that person going to have? So when it comes to the person looking back, he's going to have at some point regret, which is useless because he can't fix it now. He's going to have really bad intentions on a soul that he will have to pay for. And he's learned nothing. So now the chapter ends. And now we have to, pick up the pieces. Because when we do a remodel, the first thing we do is a demolition. So the divorce is demolition. And now we have to start rebuilding. And I always ask, and I appreciate that personalities are different. So the introverts, the left brainers, are very comfortable being by themselves. The right brainers would rather be in a relationship tomorrow morning. But you need time to find out who you are now. You know, if we think of a marathon runner who breaks his ankle, it doesn't matter how many marathons are scheduled in the year, he still needs 8 weeks in a cast and then weeks of physical therapy before he even considers running another race. And that's just a race.
If you're a whole brainer, does that mean you want to be in a relationship tomorrow, but you realize you got issues?
So when it comes to whole brain, the funny part is this: we do tend to, according to basically how much education and training and self-development we've invested in ourselves, we tend to be able to look at different perspectives. So allow at least 3 months to get to know who you are today. Because the first few weeks is recoil. I can't believe he said that. I can't believe she said that. Am I really this person? Did they really see this in me? Did I really behave that way? So I have to let all that settle down. And then start doing things for you. Not because so-and-so said, you know, like, I eat too much ice cream, which I don't. But if, let's say they commented, right? Oh, you eat too much ice cream, so I stop ice cream because I'm recoiling from that snarky remark. What about if I find out if I truly love ice cream? Or maybe I don't like ice cream anymore. Or maybe I used to watch horror movies because that's what he enjoyed, but I'm petrified of horror movies. So why am I still watching horror movies? So come from a space where you allow you, and seriously, take the time. Venture into different genres of everything.
So I think what you're describing, though, is a higher level consciousness. And when I was going through the divorce, when it first happened, I was in the darkest of dark times in my life. There was no thought of whether I liked ice cream or not. And I needed something to hold me in this world. And that's where I picked up the book again. I created a purpose around that book. And here's my thought around this is that what you're describing, yes, I agree with, but I'm going to disagree in the sense that there's that space, like you said, the 3-month window or maybe longer, where you're just hanging on to this world. And that's where a purpose can really serve you is find something that gives you purpose for life. You know, the word purpose comes from a place to pause, right? You're moving toward a place to pause. Mine was the book. You know, if I could get this book off the ground, it'll give me a place to pause down the road, right? But it kept me in this world. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was traveling. It was exactly that. It was me able to pull out books and go, oh, this is where I want to go. This is where, and then planning, you know, and getting the kids involved and getting my ex involved and having that common goal to focus on to take away the hurt. And it wasn't that I was just disregarding it. And I certainly went into, you know, the last 4 years of personal development after he was off the scene completely. Because I think that was absolutely necessary. But we seem to have that awareness. And because maybe we were a bit older, I'm not sure. And I think we always went into it knowing that, you know, kids come first and what's going to elevate us to that next place.
Yes, having a purpose, I think, is absolutely necessary. We need to split our world into needs and wants. And in the darkest of dark, we still have to honor the needs.
Yeah.
And with parents, it's not a decision just for you, because if let's say in the worst of the worst, you decided that was it and you were ready to check out, your decision wasn't only affecting you, your decision was going to have ripple effects on your children.
Yeah.
So if you keep that, sometimes living today for their sake is keeping you alive.
And I think the biggest lesson for me in that surrounding my children was to let go of what was happening over there, because I had no control of it. Nothing was ever going to change it. So just let go of it. If they were hurting over there, or, you know, if, you know, they weren't being provided with something, or they were eating junk food all day, nothing was ever going to change it. Nothing, I said. I mean, this man has hate for me, right? He's not going to listen to me. He's not going to listen to my kids because he's going to think I told my kids that. So nothing was ever going to change it. The hardest lesson for me was just turning turning around, turning a blind eye to it. And it is what it is, because nothing I do will change it. So move forward, provide for them the best I can here, love them the best I can here, and allow that to happen. Allow him to respond in that way and allow it to happen.
This is beautiful, like that allowance. So in the word acceptance, JP Morgan talks about allowance. JP Morgan, not the financier or whoever that would be, but he talks about allowance and accommodation. And in acceptance, allowance says I can allow space for that to occur over there. Accommodation means that I'm going to, fight it, resist it, or bring it into my home in a certain way that it affects me negatively. Accommodate it. And so there's allowance, which gives it a little bit of grace and space, right? But the other thing you're describing as well is, Melissa, when you had the time with your kids, that gave you a purpose. Like Viktor Frankl talked about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that we need that purpose because that gives us something to move toward. And your kids became your purpose. If that's what it takes, is for those kids to become the purpose, and that keeps you in this world, and that keeps you from causing additional harm, I think it's a fantastic purpose.
Yes.
My mantra in my meditations for the last 3 years has been, I am allowing of the process and how other people react. For 3 years during my meditations, I said that in every meditation, I'm allowing of the process and how others react. Because I didn't know how to step away from that. I wanted to protect my kids and provide for them and love them and make up for what I thought they weren't getting over there so badly. It was so hard to step away from that and step out of that.
And the other thing we also react to is, what are they saying about us? And again, allow, because what they say about us is showing more about them than about us, which is why, taking the high road really works. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's tough. Yes, it really makes you bite your tongue sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, your actions and your deeds are what are going to resonate through time.
Beautiful.
And kids eventually see that truth, right? They eventually know what's going on. They feel the energy of what's going on. They come to their own conclusions. My 12-year-old already comes to his own conclusions and sees things.
They all see it.
Yeah.
So now we come to, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How are we supposed to trust somebody new? Well, the one thing I can tell you is, we've seen people, like when kids are tossed into a swimming pool, they're not exactly learning how to swim, right? It's a traumatic event. The next time they're in a swimming pool, the first thing they do is go to the shallow end and put their foot in. So knowing that we've been hurt, knowing that we've seen, we were vulnerable, we opened up, we offered our heart on a silver platter, and they smashed it. Can we offer it again that easily? No. So how about we take time, we allow the healing process to happen, so we feel safe again, we get to know who we truly are again, and then we start by offering 2%. Ironically, it helps the relationship grow better when it's a teaspoon, not a ladle offering kind of thing. And when we start trusting with a 2% increment, we're not risking that much. And when the other person steps up, just like Melissa said, the other person steps up and shows us that they're trustworthy and respectful, and their words match their deeds. Because we have an epidemic here of people who have a very relaxed relationship with the truth. So I'll be there. I'll do this. Don't worry, I got your back. But then when the crisis happens, they vanish. So which is the truth? What they say or what they do?
Yeah, and I think we also have to keep in the back of our minds, and I'm going to admit right here in public that I didn't keep this in the back of my mind for a long time, and it was Maureen on a phone call about 2 months ago. I think we were on a phone call, and she said to me, she explained to me that this sentence was said to me in so much hate and antagonism, and that it was the one thing that my ex knew would get me, just like she had that one sentence from her ex. That one sentence that I will never forget is, I never loved you, I tolerated you. And my ex said that to me, and it crushed me. crushed me. I was tolerated. I might cry. I was tolerated for that many years, not loved. And I know he didn't mean it. That was in anger, right? And Maureen reminded me that he didn't mean that it was in anger. But when I go into a new relationship and try and trust someone, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendship or not, that's in the back of my mind. Am I being tolerated? Do they really love me for who I am, or am I being tolerated? And I have to remind myself that was said out of hate and hurt, and just exactly what he knew would get me, and that it wasn't true. It wasn't true, because it affects me and it affects how I let people in to this day. I still struggle with that.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. Yeah, I go out in the dating field and it's like, holy cow, who would want to be married to this guy? Right? Is where it comes from. And I think back on all these experiences of going through a divorce, and you go into the dating field, everyone puts up their profile, their best side, their best image or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. People always highlight their best parts. I went out with somebody who put up on the on their profile, what childhood traumas are you dealing with? And I'm like, you're awesome, right? You're my kind of people. And the reality is, like, if we could just open up and just share, we all have them. We all have our stuff. And when you get into that realization that we all have our stuff, then you start to accept yourself a little more, and it opens the door for you to go out and accept other people and their stuff. And then you're really coming together. You're not coming from that surface stuff. And I think that's where initially when I started dating, it was a struggle, because I had all this stuff and I didn't know if I wanted everybody to know about it. And then now it's like, you got your stuff and it's probably equal to or worse than mine. So let's just see where it goes. Can we accept each other with all that stuff?
As long as the foundation is respect, then yes. If the foundation is, well, you're going to show me your weaknesses, so now I know where to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to be in a space where both parties are coming in with the awareness that the vulnerabilities shared are because you're trusting them, not because you're giving them ammunition to attack you later.
Yeah, that's beautiful right there.
And the other thing also is we ourselves need to look back, because just like Melissa said, every time the thought pops up, she looks back and loves herself more because she acknowledges and reiterates, he said it out of anger and that was a lie. So to allow us to see ourselves, because the thing is this, if we ask any artist about their masterpiece, they will point out where the mistake was. If we had to look back and say, well, Leonardo da Vinci didn't do it right, so, it's a lost cause, give up. Every one of us has an Achilles heel. And if we can look at ourselves and appreciate how far we've come. And now the only thing is this, when it comes to deserving of a new love, we need to be bold and selfish, and I'm using that word on purpose, because when we love again, we are hopefully offering the best quality of love we have to share, right? We're ready to give 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we accept anything less? So for us to look into a relationship and go, well, there's this I'm not really crazy about and this, but it's okay, I'll settle for this. When it comes to love, never, ever settle. You deserve to be the number one in that person's life. You deserve to be the reason why they thank God every day, because you're in their life. And why shouldn't you deserve that? Why shouldn't you receive that? The reason, when you look back at people who are divorced with kids, there was a purpose. They came together. Those children had to be born. Those children, according to whichever religious or spiritual background you have, chose you, the two of you, to be the parents. So that connectivity had to happen for these kids to come in with their uniqueness, because who knows what they're going to create in the world, right? So when you look back, it wasn't wasted time. It was absolutely necessary that the two of you came together, because now you have these beautiful humans in the world. It's it's a harsh crash course. I mean, it's like, you're taking your course classes in college and you're just made aware that the classes you took were not right for your major.
Wow, that's like getting pissed at the mine for digging gold out of it. You're like, that I hate the mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you got gold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you said that too. I once, when I was struggling, trying to move past that and figure out how to move forward in the best way for my kids and be allowing of all of that. A mentor of mine said to me, I need you to move into a place of gratitude. Sit in gratitude to this man for the amazing children that he helped you create. If you and him were not together, you would not have created this amazing children. They wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't be the person you are today. Sit in a place of gratitude for the person that you are today, that you've grown into, and for these beautiful children that have been created, and move from there, from that gratitude. And
That's
was one of the greatest things.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say, Melissa. Yeah. that was my turning point of healing. I started with gratitude. I started writing 10 things to be grateful for every single day. And some days it was hard, really, really hard. And some days I had to just go really, really small. You know what I mean? I'm grateful that I'm breathing today. I'm grateful for, I really had to. I had to go in. I was in such that place of hurt, and, and you feel so broken. And you just feel like you've been completely dismantled. You're like, everything that I thought was going to be true isn't true. And not only are you feeling shattered, I was feeling shattered for my children, because I'm a child of divorce. And I know that every single day of my childhood, all I wanted was my parents to get back together. So knowing that I had just inflicted that on my 3 kids, it was a really big weight to carry. And like I said, the only thing that started to turn it around for me to heal was, what can I be grateful for today?
You just hit a huge point right there. Is not only don't cause harm to the other person, but stop causing harm to yourself with what occurred.
Yep. I mean, when you think about it, we don't have wine unless we crush the grapes. And we don't like, grape juice is grape juice for kids, but we don't drink freshly crushed grapes. We give them time. And with time, there's the nuances of the wine. With time, there's the aging, the subtleties, if you think of liquor, some people like whiskey, but some people like a 12, 18, or 25-year whiskey. The aged process is enhancing the quality. So if we look at what time is doing to us, are we allowing our best qualities to be enhanced, which we have full power to allow, by the way, or are we allowing that wine to turn into vinegar because we're so bitter and sour and full of hate? So the biggest catalyst is gratitude and appreciation and accepting. To be blunt about ourselves to ourselves is an eye-opener. So if we allow to know where the red flags are, if I'm, into, let's say, beginning a relationship, and I know that I have a sensitivity about this one topic, and he starts approaching that topic, am I going to just shut up and allow, and then it blows up in both our faces? Or am I going to speak up and say, listen, this is a little sensitive for me, and I would love to be able to honor you with a calm response or a more neutral response, but you need to know you're on thin ice right now because of this situation with me. To be aware of that is allowing me the choice to be proactive than reactive. There's a saying, don't bleed on people who didn't cut you. So if he has no idea that topic is sensitive to me, and he starts going down that route because maybe he thinks it's a loving act, and then all of a sudden now I just explode and turn into a monster, and he has no clue. That's not fair to him. And by the way, that's not fair to me. So to allow the understanding, time will go by anyway. How you experience every moment is basically the quality of life you live. So if you give yourself the permission, okay, so in the past I did that. All right, so in the past, that's all I knew. But now I can react this way. That's growth. That's evolving.
Yes.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
I was going to say that's personal responsibility, and that saying hurt people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly where it is. It's being able to step back and go, oh, goodness, that's a projection from me, because I've still got this little unhealed spot that's hurting. And that's on me, though. That's on me to have that recognition and go, okay, well, there's something I need to work on. And going into a new relationship, I didn't go into a new relationship for 4.5 years. So I'd done all this personal work, but I didn't know where my edges were in a relationship, because I hadn't been in a relationship to find what would then trigger me and what brought me up to my edges going, oh, wow, that's still there. And, oh, that really hurts.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I had a mentor of mine tell me the same thing. So, because I mean, you want to wait, and Maureen always talks about waiting for that certain period of time to know yourself and to let everything settle. But I had another mentor of mine say to me, you're not going to completely heal all that if you just went and hid away for a year and said, I've done the work on myself, I'm great, I'm good to go. Right? You're not healed all the way, because you haven't been in a relationship and you haven't healed those things as they happen and they come up in the relationship, and it's still going to be work. When you get into a relationship,
they won't come up. Yeah, they won't come up outside of a relationship. I don't have issues with myself. I can go watch a movie. I don't fight with myself, right? It's like I want to eat a certain food. I don't fight myself over that food.
Yeah.
You go into a relationship. What happens, I think, on the second relationship is you've got the original recipe, not KFC, but kind of, and you go into a new relationship with the original recipe. And you try and do it all over again using the original recipe, and you don't grow from it or adapt to it, like what you're describing here, Maureen. And then you go back into another relationship with the same garbage that you had in the first one, and it's within us, and you expect it to work on somebody else. It didn't work on the first one. Why is it going to work on the second one? So it's meant to adapt, like adjust your recipe. That wine, 25 years, that wine could be terribly nasty if the recipe is wrong.
Absolutely.
25 years doesn't mean you're wise. 25 years is wisdom if you're making adjustments and evolving, like you shared.
Yes. It's like Thomas Edison's light bulb, 10,000 efforts, right?
Yeah.
If he did the same thing 10,000 times, he would still not succeed. But he kept tweaking 10,000 times. So when we look at, again, the coming in from what's your intention? If your intention is to conquer, to win, to overtake, to veto the other person's opinion, do the same thing, because it's going to fail again. But if your intention is to love and be loved and create a loving environment where actually people can be happy again, then
yeah.
I want to go to a comment here too. We have a comment that says, after divorce, when the right person comes along, they are graded by the former relationship and never get an honest chance. And I wanted to read that one aloud because I have a comment about that. And I agree that they are graded by our former relationships, but I think it's up to us to see what we've been through and have grown through that, and to be able to give that chance. So the statement that they never get an honest chance, it can be true if we're not giving them that chance. It's up to us to open up and grow and react to those things differently in order to give that person the honest chance that they deserve.
I want to highlight that word never, right? We use it, you always, or you never, right? And this isn't an attack on whoever wrote the comment. Just hear me out on it. That is a childlike response. My 9-year-old says that to me, right? You never. Well, is that true? Can that possibly be true that I never? Right. So there's a possibility that I might not do that, but it's not an always or never thing, that all or nothing thinking. And so really opening up to that it's a possibility that they could be graded that way.
I ask the clients, because they'll be like, well, he reminds me of this, or she reminds me of my ex. And I go, okay, so do you want your new partner to judge you according to their ex?
Mm.
No. Oh.
Interesting. right?
Yeah, it is.
doesn't fit on the other side. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that, so don't do it to the other.
Yeah.
Well, that applies in a relationship. If you're in a marriage that's still together and you're thinking about divorce, there's possibility within all of this to go back to that marriage and make it work there.
Yes.
And if you do get divorced, then you come to a decision together and you got to go through this in another relationship. So where do you want to fight the battle? The one you got or the one you don't know yet? Or, it's totally up to each individual.
What part is people say, well, the grass is greener on the other side.
I have spray paint too.
That was perfect.
Bright green.
Well, one of the things I say is the grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
If you have a stagnant relationship with a current partner, give it, defibrillator. Come and give it a shock. Do something, and never ever walk away before you've done everything in your power to attempt to fix it. Because when people think about, when people have been married for 60 years, they're different people than the day they got married. And what's happened is they've loved each other through the transitions.
Wow. Yeah. Dr. Will Moreland, can you hang on to that?
Yeah,
Melissa?
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Moreland, when we interviewed him, he talked about the completion, that a divorce is a completion. It's just a turning. It's a different direction. He said somebody could be married 20 years and they have a divorce and they feel like a failure. They get remarried and are married for 40 years and other people would call that a success, right? The second marriage lasted 40 years. All of the other, he said, it's not like you can go 20 years together and just wipe it under the table like it never existed. But you were together 20 years. There's a lot of memory and experience that just is hanging there. You don't just blank it out, like jump over the hole like it never was there. So you incorporate that and you adjust. But the idea that we're a failure in a divorce, after 5, 10, 20 years of marriage, you could have another marriage that's 40, 50 years and people would call you a success and forget about your first thing,
Yep.
Melissa, do you remember what you're going to?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I once, my aunt and uncle had been married for 60 years and I had seen them fight a few times. And, Italians, my uncle could have a hot head, right? They're both Italian and born in Italy, both of them. Came to Canada, and my uncle's family's still back in Italy. And I once asked my uncle, because I recall growing up around him thinking he was this hot-headed Italian, right? As when I was young. And then when I had kids and they were his great nieces and nephews, he was so sweet with them and loving with them and throwing them up in the air. And I was like, oh, this isn't the man I experienced when I was a kid. This is incredible. So I once asked him, how did you do it? I was separated already. How did you do it? How did you stay married for that long, that many years? And now keep in mind, this is a man who he never expressed his emotions or anything like that in front of anyone. Old school Italian, so you didn't see any of that. And he just said one thing to me: you just decide to love every day. And that was it. That was all he said to me. You just decide to love every day. Probably one of the most profound things anyone has ever said to me. And it stuck with me, because you just have to move into that place of love and decide to love every day.
I don't think any one of us can overdo that. Because if we choose to love our partner every day, we win. If we choose to love our kids every day, we win. If we choose to love ourselves every day, we win. If we choose to love complete strangers, we win. So if we can come from there, it's good.
Yeah. I love it. And I'm just looking at the time. I think that was the perfect place to end this episode, in a place of love. I absolutely love how that just happened. I'm so grateful to have you here with us today, Maureen. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest co-host. I'm grateful to have Nick and Alyssa on. We're not graced with Alyssa's presence very often, but she is just a wise soul. So thank you so much for getting up at 3:00 in the morning to join us today. It's 3 a.m. where Alyssa is, 4 a.m. now, I think, in Australia. Does anybody have any last thoughts before we sign off?
You deserve to be loved.
Hmm.
I love that.
Each
I
of us,
love it.
each of you, we deserve to be loved.
Yeah. And I would just say that too, that you're not broken.
There you
Even though you come out feeling very, very broken, that you're still lovable.
Mhm.
And when you've done the healing that you need to,
Mhm.
then you can take those steps towards a new relationship.
Wonderful. Nick, do you have any last words?
No, that's it. That was great.
Yeah.
Great episode. Thank you.
It was. Thank you to all of our viewers as well. And please join us next week for episode 24 when we have special guest co-host Tamar Medford on. And she'll be talking to us about how to discover your purpose and break through old beliefs. Wishing you all a wonderful week, my friends.
Thank you.
Goodbye.